Hey guys, before we begin, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to both UKCreepypasta and CreepyGrizzly for collaborating with me in this story. I will leave a link to both of their respective YouTube channels below. Be sure to subscribe to them and their channels to stay up to date with all of their stories and content. It's been fun trying to get multiple narrators aligned in this story, so without further ado, let's begin. Slut, whore, baby killer. The horrible names they called her and their cold, piercing stares remained burned in her brain, playing over and over in her head on repeat. When she was in class, when she was at her locker, when she was in the bathroom. There was nowhere Stacey was safe. Even the teachers at St. Mary's seemed to follow her with their eyes when she was in the hallways, standing at the threshold of their classrooms with their arms crossed, looking down on her. The librarian scanned her books a little slower than she did the rest of the students. The lunch lady splattered her mashed potatoes onto her tray with a little more apathy than she did the rest of the lunch line. Even the creepy old janitor, who the children had given the nickname Old Man Frankenstein, due to his limp leg that dragged behind him as he walked, seemed to stare at Stacey deeply whenever they crossed paths. And she could read their thoughts. They all were the same. That's the girl who had an abortion. But it was on a cold, snowy day in February that a series of events were put in motion that would change the lives of everyone at St. Mary's forever. The day started out quieter than most. Due to the blizzard outside, many of the students had decided to stay home, wrapped in a warm blanket, sipping hot chocolate and letting the thoughts of tests and grades take a back seat to the pleasures of daytime television. But in the hallways of St. Mary's, those who were forced to attend their classes that day did so with heavy feet and little patience. Stacey walked toward her chemistry class, her books close to her chest and her eyes on the floor. This way she could protect her books from being swatted at while avoiding the rows of eyeballs lit up on each side of her like flights on an airport runway. If Stacey had been looking straight ahead, she may have seen the three girls approaching with Stacey dead in their sights. It was Tori, honor student and captain of the senior girls' volleyball team, and her sidekicks, Sarah and Veronica. Knowing how the girls felt about her, Stacey would have perhaps avoided the brash shoulder that came her way when Tori blew past.
"Watch it, slut,"
said Tori. Stacey's books fell to the floor. A group of kids, boy and girl alike, started to gather around them with grins on their faces. Sarah and Veronica were showing teeth. Stacey kept her eyes on the floor, knelt down and started to pick up her books. "Real mature, Tori," said a boy from the crowd. Stacey was surprised to look up and, of all people, see Logan Davis coming to her defense. They never talked. Stacey didn't even know he knew she existed. He was a popular hockey player, and she was just Stacey. Naive, stupid Stacey. He knelt down beside her and helped her gather her books. The crowd disbanded. Tori and her sidekicks walked on. "Hey, grade 11 math. I'm in that class too," he said. Stacey pulled herself from the floor and she looked up to see Logan's well-chiseled face and beaming blue eyes gazing back at her. She hated jocks but always thought Logan was something different. He was kind. You could see it in his smile. A smile will get you every time, she thought to herself. But she remained cool as ice.
Yeah, I know.
"Don't mind Tori," he said, as they got to their feet and he handed her back her textbook. "She can be a real devil sometimes,"
Thanks.
said Stacey, tucking her hair behind her ear before returning to a double-handed squeeze on her books. "Can I walk you to class?" Logan asked. Stacey almost didn't understand the question.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks.
As they walked, Stacey could once again feel the stairs burning a hole through her back. This time, though, they were all thinking about something else. They were thinking the same thing Stacey was thinking. What is Logan doing walking with her? Logan didn't seem to notice. Stacey guessed he must be used to it. He got looked at a lot too. "Today's the first playoff game for the hockey team," he said as they went. "I play on the hockey team." Stacey couldn't help but roll her eyes and grin ever so slightly.
I know. You're wearing the team jacket.
He looked down at his red Letterman. "Oh yeah," he chuckled. "You ever come watch?" She told him she hadn't, but that was a lie. She had been to a game once before, with Steve. That night, the night that changed her life forever. Steve had snuck in a small flask of vodka and they passed it back and forth high up in the stands. "To keep warm," he said. By the third period, the contents of the flask was gone, and so were they. Going back to Steve's car seemed harmless. The back seat seemed exciting. But 3 weeks later, it all came crashing down. Everyone knew Stacey's name after that. The girl who aborted her baby. The family cast out. The friendless. The unloved. And as for her babysitting career, the one thing she actually enjoyed in her dismal teenage years, no one in town was about to hire a baby killer to look over their precious gifts from God while they were away. "You should come," said Logan, breaking her from her trance. The invite stunned her. Every fibre of her being told her to say no. But that smile of his, those kind blue eyes, there really was something different about him, Stacey thought.
Sure,
she said. And for the first time in a long time, Stacey smiled. At lunch, Stacey would eat a sandwich and fruit in the boiler room below the school. For one thing, it was by far the warmest place in the institution in what was one of the coldest winters in years. And for another, it let her eat in peace. There was no one watching, no one pointing or snickering. Having people stare at you while you eat is like having people stare at you while you pee, she thought. It's perverted. It was nice and quiet down there, with the exception of the whoosh from the water pipes and the random hisses and clanks that always followed. Even the reject sounds of the school found their way down to the boiler room for a little escape from the busybodies above. Their sporadic company gave Stacey comfort and put her at ease. Warm and quiet, just the way Stacey liked it. As she drained the small carton of its last drops of chocolate milk, she heard the faint jingling of keys. Then came silence for a moment, before the jingle of keys returned once again, only louder this time. The jingles soon were accompanied by a gritty scraping sound, like something heavy dragging on the floor. Someone was coming. Stacey's first instinct was to hide behind the boiler, but she had burned herself on it the first time down, and she didn't want to live through that pain again. Before she could think of another plan, a figure, hunched over and pale, emerged from behind a row of pipes. Old Man Frankenstein. Surprisingly, Stacey was relieved it was him. At least he was harmless. The principal, on the other hand, was just looking for a way to suspend her from school. She relaxed and went back to her sandwich.
What are you doing down here?
He grunted. He pointed at her with the wrench in his hand, his limp leg dragging behind him.
Eating my lunch?
Stacey replied simply.
Well, I can see that,
said the custodian, not very amused at her reply.
You're not supposed to be down here. It's dangerous. What's wrong with the cafeteria?
It's even more dangerous for me up there,
Stacey said. Deciding to carry on with his business anyhow, Old Man Frankenstein headed to a long vertical pipe near the boiler, grunting as he went, muttering something Stacey couldn't understand.
Besides, it's nice down here.
It's too damn hot,
said Old Man Frankenstein. Stacey watched the old man struggle to turn the valve on the pipe. After some harsh coughs and some sweat, he managed to get it going. Stacey's first instinct was to applaud the man, but she was still holding her sandwich.
I don't know. I like it.
The old man spun his head around and yelled at her.
Now, I'm serious. You can't be badly hurt down here. You need to get going, you hear?
Stacey didn't budge.
I know. Burnt myself pretty bad on that boiler.
She pointed to the mammoth metal keg barrel casing with all its dials, valves, and industrial bolts.
That thing'll get you.
The man retreated back to his pipe.
You're darn right. That thing will burn your face clean off.
What a strange thing to say, thought Stacey.
You're not gonna tell on me, are you?
She asked, swallowing a mouthful of peanut butter and jelly.
How come you ain't scared of me, like the rest of students?
Why would I be?
Asked Stacey, wishing she had made that carton of chocolate milk last a little bit longer. Peanut butter was sticking to the back of her throat.
Most of you are. I hear what they call me. Old Man Frankenstein. They look at me like I'm some kind of freak show.
Are you?
Most unpaid freak show in all the land. Then, I suppose.
I know what it's like, you know? To be looked at like a freak show.
Is that why you're down here?
Stacey nodded, biting into a sandwich.
And what makes you so scary? You don't look scary to me.
Stacey was surprised he hadn't heard. What's one more, she thought.
I had an abortion.
He stared at her for a moment, the same way he would stare when they passed each other in the halls. Then he snorted and shook his head, as if a fly had flown in his face, suddenly becoming stern. Old man Frankenstein responds.
If you ask me, you're all too young for this kind of stuff. Now, you're gonna ruin your life acting like that, you hear me?
Stacey immediately regretted opening up to him and shoved what little of a sandwich was left into a lunch bag. Stacey retorted.
Forget it. Never mind. I'll leave you to your precious boiler room.
She put a lunch bag in a knapsack and threw it over her shoulder, hurrying past the old man.
Wait,
he said, but it was too late. Stacey was gone. She could see her breath. Stacey sat in the chilly stands of the hockey rink, blowing into her fist, yearning for the radiating heat of the boiler room. But when Logan skated onto the ice and waved up to her, she felt herself warming up pretty quick. A few rows to her left, sitting behind the visitor net, Tori and her sidekicks, Sarah and Veronica, were sitting with some of the football team watching the game. Tori had been cheering Logan on as his shift took the ice, but when she saw how he waved to Stacey, her cheer turned to a scowl and her focus shifted from the game to a different type of competition. Stacey pretended she didn't notice, but seeing Tori in such a state put a smile on her face that she couldn't just get rid of. Stacey kept her eyes on Logan, amazed at his athleticism. His speed and grace made the other team look slow and sluggish by comparison. Stacey could hear his blade scraping onto the ice as he zigged and zagged through the other team, and then, with the grace of a ballerina, spun around a defenseman and let off a hammering slap shot that whizzed right through over the goalie's shoulder and exploded into the mesh of the top corner. The crowd cheered. Stacey cheered. Stacey was one of the crowd. After the game, Stacey waited for Logan at the hot chocolate counter like he had asked, her heart racing as if she had been out there on the ice herself. When he came out from the change room, wearing that red Letterman hockey bag hanging off his shoulder and a grin that showed off his dimple aimed right at her, she felt a tingle in her belly. She hadn't felt that tingle in a long time. She wouldn't allow herself to, not after Steve. But Logan's not like Steve, she lectured herself. Logan's different. Glad you came, he said as he approached. He was moving slower now. He put his elbow on the counter and leaned. How was your first hockey experience? He said. Stacey relaxed.
A little frigid, but not bad.
Maybe we can get you warmed up. A few of us are going to Pins to bowl some games. Jerry's got a fake ID. We can get pictures, said Logan. He motioned behind him to the group of kids by the arcade game. More Letterman jackets and a group of girls, including Tori, Sarah, and Veronica.
Thanks, but I should probably be getting home. I have to babysit my little brother.
Stacey didn't have a little brother, but it rolled off the tongue pretty smoothly. Logan understood. Okay, well, see you in math, I guess. Thanks for coming. Stacey watched him jog back over to the group, who seemed relieved he was coming back alone. Everyone piled out to the rink, except for Tori, who hung back and waited until her friends were outside before she walked over to Stacey and said,
You know he's just paying you attention because he knows you're an easy lay, right?
Tori left her alone with that thought and walked away with a satisfied smile on her face. Stacey sat in the boiler room, finishing the last of a sandwich, when the old custodian limped out from a set of pipes, his one leg dragging behind. But she knew he was coming. She heard those keys jingling a mile away. This time he didn't look upset to be seeing her, nor did he break into a lecture about why she shouldn't be down here. He just went about his business like she weren't even there. Stacey wondered why that seemed so odd to her, and then realized that she could not remember the last time someone ignored her presence. She was almost offended by it.
Come to give me more lectures?
Watching him fiddle with a wrench on some bolts. He shook his head a bit, but said nothing, focusing hard on the bolt lodged in the grip of his wrench.
Are you tightening or loosening?
She asked, now a spectator at the event.
Tightening.
He coughed back between grunts. Stacey nodded as if impressed at his answer.
I'm more of a loosener myself, but that's just me.
The custodian gave up on the bolt, took a big breath out and rubbed the wrinkles on his forehead.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not really doing anything. This bolt doesn't need to be tightened.
He kept his eyes on the floor, almost embarrassed to look up.
I just want to say I'm sorry. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. Anyways, that's all I came here to say. Enjoy your lunch.
He turned away and headed for the exit. Stacey called out to him, feeling guilty for instigating.
Wait, man, you don't have to go just yet. You can chill.
He stopped and grinned, which made the lines on the side of his face curl and crease.
Chill? In the boiler room? Fine choice of words, kid,
smirked old man Frankenstein.
I'm sure you're not that busy. Come chill, keep me company.
I don't think that's allowed.
Stacey was having fun with him now.
Come on. Do you seriously want me to only know you as Old Man Frankenstein? What's your name, dude? Or sir? Do you prefer dude or sir?
My name's Will. And what's yours, besides sad lonely girl?
Sad lonely girl. I like that. My name is Stacey. As in, did you hear? Stacey had an abortion, and other famous phrases.
He raised his wrinkled palm.
Stacey will be just fine. Don't have to add all that now.
Stacey liked Will right away. It was nice to have someone to joke with. You don't realize how much you miss the little social interactions when you're isolated. Even a thing as simple as joking around. And she knew it was probably just as nice for Will to have someone to talk to as well. She asked about his limp, how he got it and where. He told her it was a war injury from his tour in Vietnam. Stacey was amazed and felt embarrassed and ashamed that she used to see this man just as a creepy old grump. People are so easy to judge and vilify from afar. It's only when you get close do you see that we're all just human beings. We all have stories, good ones and bad. He asked her if she was ever planning on eating in the cafeteria again.
I'm actually thinking of bringing a bed and TV down here and just moving in. Stay here forever.
This is not a place for a young lady.
Well, it's safer down here. Trust me.
He paused to collect some thoughts.
Our past.
You have any kids?
She asked over him. Will bowed his head and said,
I do. A daughter. Somewhere out there. You actually remind me of her quite a bit.
Somewhere out there? What is she, like, in the Navy or something?
Her mother took her from me. The war messed my head up something awful. I came back a darker person. It's probably better this way.
That's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. If it makes you feel any better, it kind of helps to hear how I'm not the only person who has it rough. Puts things into perspective, you know? Our past makes us who we are, but we have the power to choose what that is. Like, learn from it, or let loneliness, shame, and hatred consume you, kind of thing.
He seemed almost entertained.
In so many words.
She continued.
Well, take your own advice, dude. Did we settle on sir or dude? Go see your daughter. Be less dark. It's your daughter. You're supposed to do anything for your daughter. You would sail the seas for her. You would kill for her.
Her momentum halted.
Sorry. It's none of my business. But it would probably mean the world to her too.
Will, who had looked a lot less like Frankenstein and a lot more human-like, beat the wrench softly in his palm, then turned around and slowly limped away, the one leg dragging behind, scraping on the concrete. She felt she overstepped, but maybe she hoped her words might have helped him out in some way. It seemed like they got through. Stacey stayed a while longer and listened to the wish-washing of the pipes. If she could close her eyes, feeling the warmth of the boiler radiating on her skin, she could pretend, if only for a moment, that she was on a deserted beach somewhere, lying in the sand, watching a sunset and listening to the waves crash in and out. She could escape from this cold, cold winter at last. Then she packed her things and headed for the stairwell. When she turned the corner into the corridor, she ran smack into the brick wall that was Logan Davies. Before she stepped back and saw his face, she saw the LD embroidered on the breast of his red letterman.
Logan, what are you doing here?
He grinned. So is this where you're eating your lunches now? I just saw old man Frankenstein come up from here. He wasn't groping you, was he?
No,
She replied, confused. Good, said Logan. He put his hand on her waist and pulled her close. That's my job, he followed up. He leaned in for a kiss. Stacey turned her head.
Stop it, Logan, I need to get to class.
She responded. He squeezed tighter. Come on, Stacey, I know you like me. You can spare a few minutes. She tried to press herself off him, but he was squeezing too tight. Stacey, getting angry.
I'm serious, Logan, let me go.
He kept going. I know you want it, Stacey. I know you like to fuck. Stacey managed to wiggle an arm free, wound up and smacked Logan hard across the cheek. He let go of her immediately and grabbed the side of his face, which was quickly turning red. You bitch, he cried out. What the hell is wrong with you, huh? You some kind of dyke or something? You'd rather be down there with Frankenstein.
His name's not Frankenstein, okay? It's Will. And don't you ever touch me again, you jerk, or I'll have your name in the papers and it won't be for scoring a stupid goal.
She pushed past him and ran up the stairs. Stacey never ended up going to class. Instead, she locked herself in a bathroom stall and cried.
I heard you and old man Frankenstein got it on in the boiler room,
Teased Tori when Stacey passed her in the halls the next day.
I know you like older guys, Stacey, but wow.
Giggled Sarah.
Someone tell Rick James there's a new super freak in town.
Laughed Veronica. Stacey kept on her way, paying them no mind. But it was clear that the atmosphere around her had changed. The students were still staring. That much was the same. But now, instead of scowls and resentment, it was giggles and smiles. Not welcoming smiles, but patronizing ones. Humiliating ones. She heard whispers as she walked. Frankie fucker was the most common. Stacey put her head down and picked up her pace. The stares and laughs were coming from all around her now. It was suffocating. She needed to get somewhere safe, quick. I heard you made out with the janitor, said one of the boys from the football team as she turned a corner. Stacey's teeth clenched and her fists tightened. She was furious, not just at the students who were so eager to gang up on her and strip her of any little dignity she had left, but at herself for thinking Logan was anything different from any other high school boy. A liar and a jerk, that's all Logan was. She was determined to let him know just how she felt about him the second she saw him in maths class that day. If he thought that slap in the face was bad, he was in for a rude awakening. But when she got to math class, Logan's desk was empty. Stacey didn't eat lunch in the boiler room that day. She didn't want to give the student body any more ammunition. But if she had, she would have found a body sprawled out next to the boiler in a red Letterman jacket. The face, unrecognizable from all the bubbles and scars that had disfigured the skin when his face was pressed against the steaming keg barrel. Pieces of flesh and blood were still dissolving on the hot metal surface. Though if Stacey turned the body over and looked at the initials embroidered on the red Letterman jacket, she would have seen the letters LD, and beside the body she would have seen a discarded wrench stained in what looked to be crimson paint, and a pair of footprints in the same shiny crimson shade leading away from the pool of blood. One of the shoe prints was normal and defined, and the other was shapeless and streaked, like a limp leg dragging behind, scraping on the concrete.